hope we don't make love anymore.
That's not you. I don't want to go to bed with my wife.
Your father blames me because we don't have any children, and I don't like the way he looks at me. There is nothing in this world that Jock Ewing wants more than a grandson.
Just about give up on you.
And I haven't been able to give him his first. Because of your disinterest in me. I love JR. I have tried everything I know how to get him to love me. You haven't touched me in months. Do you know how that makes me feel? Cliff Barnes? I've heard a lot about you.
I didn't know you were interested in politics.
Well, I'm not, but certain politicians interest me a lot. I was just thinking how nice it would have been if JR didn't get what he wanted. For once.
One of the more intriguing plot threads in Season 2 has been the arc of Sue Ellen Ewing. Practically handpicked to be a trophy wife by JR after he judged her in a beauty contest, Sue Ellen has come to learn that being a trophy is ultimately dehumanizing. Jock returns from an early morning horseback ride just in time to walk into one of the most awkward series of one-shots you'll ever see. It looks like CBS sprung for a Steadicam for this episode, which does provide the scene a lot of energy, but it's a little chaotic. Bobby is late for a Ewing construction meeting, Pam is late for her job, Lucy is arguing with Sue Ellen over whether she deserves a car, a decision Sue Ellen says it's up to JR to make. I'm not sure why.
Don't you think I should have a car, Granddaddy?
You leave him out of this, young lady. He spoils you rotten as it is.
At lunch, Pamela spies Cliff at the expensive restaurant she's dining at and questions why he's splurging. It is pretty out of character after all. Sue Ellen wanders in for her date with Cliff, which just makes things awkward, and they have to pretend that they've never met before.
Always a pleasure.
I'm sure.
Smooth. Bobby's construction meeting goes so well he's ready to expand by wooing some old money boys from Massachusetts. It's here where we get the first use of the name Faraday, which will be a recurring character name throughout the series, presumably with no relation between the characters. At dinner that night, JR tries to rip Bobby away from Ewing Construction to do some work at Ewing Oil, but Jock volunteers to come back to work instead.
I think I can take care of her for a couple of days.
You think that's wise, Jock?
I'm not digging ditches, Miss Ellie. I'll just be sitting in the office.
With JR going away for a few days, Sue Ellen offers to drive him to the airport personally so that she can see Cliff. Jock and Bobby agree that there's not much point in anyone trying to run Ewing Oil because JR has so many secret arrangements that no one will deal with anyone else. Bobby's business partner, Joe Morris, confirms that the Boston boys will be visiting Dallas, and they want to be impressed by South Fork and Pamela. He explains that they're old money conservative guys, so they want to know that they're dealing with a stable family man. Bobby thinks that the deal is as good as signed with Pam by his side. Cliff and Sue Ellen finally get together on screen, although Sue Ellen confirms that they've actually been meeting up for 6 weeks. At this point, we're still not sure how much affection they have for each other, or if they're just attracted due to their mutual hatred of JR. Pamela is nervous about throwing Bobby's party, so he suggests she go talk to Sue Ellen, since she's the expert. Pam catches Sue Ellen on the phone and tells her she needs to talk to her, but since she's so secretive and in a hurry, Sue Ellen assumes that the jig is up.
I have to talk to you. Let's have lunch. Oh, I have several things I have to do today.
Oh, I know. But I think it's important that we talk.
Over lunch, Sue Ellen is simultaneously relieved and angered that Pam just wants advice on the party.
You don't mean to tell me that you have brought me in to lunch with you to talk about having a party?
Hello, it was his 50th birthday.
JR calls to check in while entertaining his latest lady friend. If Jock Ewing saw JR in that silk dressing gown, I think he'd have another heart attack. Sue Ellen dips out of lunch to meet Cliff and discuss the parameters of their relationship. He reminds her that he's poor and can't give her the life that JR can.
Why did you do that?
And she ponders whether or not she's just with him because it would hurt JR the most if he found out. Nothing is settled, but at least they're being realistic. At the store, Liz Craig offers Pam a promotion and a trip to Paris. Pamela is elated, especially since she started as a simple shop girl. Unfortunately, Pam learns that the trip conflicts with Bobby's very important party. Pam opts not to even tell Bobby about Paris, sacrificing her own advancement for his. Bobby accidentally learns about it from Liz Craig, though. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Sue Ellen gets a call from the doctor confirming that she's pregnant.
Well, that can't be.
Jock's reaction confirms that he's much warmer to her when she's providing him with a grandbaby. Granted, those pants indicate that he's delirious, so that may have something to do with it. Sue Ellen calls JR and lets him know, and he seems puzzlingly jubilant. Sue Ellen tells Cliff as well, and Cliff, pragmatic as ever, says he believes that the baby is his, but it doesn't matter since she'll never leave JR's wealth in the ranch.
And what makes you so damn sure that it's yours?
Look, I'm just going on what you told me between you and JR.
They agreed to break things off between them amicably because Sue Ellen has to dedicate herself to the South Fork life. At home, Bobby gifts Pam with a new dress for her trip to Paris, and says he wants to support her in everything she does. Aww. Pam tells him that she's not going to Paris, though, because she always wants to be by his side to support him. Aww. This is like a treacly version of the Gift of the Magi. Elsewhere, JR and Sue Ellen have an uncomfortable celebration, and JR asks how she could possibly be pregnant with his child since it's been quite a while since they've been together.
I don't see how you can be 6 weeks pregnant.
She throws out a half-hearted explanation before hitting him with the line of the episode.
I've been just as faithful to our marriage vows as you have, darling.
Active love is a game changer. For one thing, we get a much stronger Sue Ellen who is willing to stand up to JR. And this time she has a bargaining chip with the heir that Jock Ewing always wanted. JR doesn't dare expose her infidelity for fear of how it would make him look, and she knows that. It's one of the rare moments that Sue Ellen positions JR into a stalemate. It's also one of the few times Cliff Barnes gets a win against JR. It may seem a little gross to conceptualize it like that, but even the characters discuss whether or not they're both just getting back at JR or if there's something real there. Of course, none of this is over. You know that JR isn't just going to let Sue Ellen's explanation lay where it is, so that whodunner is going to be a thread. And then there's the question of how this power struggle is going to play out once Sue Ellen has the child. The B-plot is cute, but ultimately disappointing. Bobby and Pam trying to one-up each other with support is distinctly in character for both of them, but it also veers into self-parody. We get it, they're perfect, and they love each other. While I like the script to this one, and I think it's one of the better written episodes of the season, the thing that keeps this from being a classic Dallas episode is purely technical. And I mean that in the literal sense. The technical aspects of this episode just fall embarrassingly flat. A Steadicam one-shot can really provide energy and vibrance to a scene. Just look at a lot of the more famous Joss Whedon oneers from Buffy the Vampire Slayer or The Avengers. But this feels more like the audience is clinging to a floating dinghy on the ocean and the seas are starting to get choppy. Some of the staging is great, but director Corey Allen doesn't know when is a good time for a steady shot and when the camera should just be locked down. The result is some scenes coming across as jumbled messes. The other thing the camera work does is blatantly reveal that this episode is shot on a soundstage. The backgrounds on South Fork look like the cardboard sets from Plan 9 from outer space. Technical issues aside, Active Love does mark a crucial pivot point in Sue Ellen and JR's relationship. All of the cards aren't on the table yet, but we've hit the turn.